go. See, I'm doing this dropped keyframe thing. Too much bandwidth. Well, either way, if there's an issue with the live, we'll at least record it properly and go about it that way. Alright, well, we got a little 2-minute timer, so I'm just gonna pull up. I actually usually kind of just ask those questions on the fly. Like since you were asking for it, like that's good incentive for me. Didn't know what was coming at you.
Well, there's one on there about a story, and there's a story I really like, but it's important to get it exactly right.
I get you.
So I had to write one and put it down. So I never tell it whatever you want to do.
Yeah, so I just kind of have fun with it. I keep it as informal as possible, casual wherever we go. But, obviously with somewhat of a format, to some degree, which is basically most of those questions kind of just started off general and easing. I think it's more fun that way. I probably should have checked our audio. I didn't really think about that last part.
How close to you?
If you keep it right there, it should pick you up pretty well. This camera. Yeah, I noticed you were actually pretty dark. You'll be like, squinting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to this. It's been a while. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, no, I've never had sit on it. That'd be fun. Yeah, no. You are the first official BNI'er. Spud doesn't count because he wasn't even BNI at the time.
You had Sid on there at one point. Maybe it was someone else.
Yeah, I've only had 4 people. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Hooked It Up.
All right. Hey, how's it going? Hooked It Up show. We are with Joshua Jewkes of Gordon Law Group. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, Josh, and we'll kind of start there.
All right. Well, as you said, that's my name, Joshua Jewkes. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I grew up. Graduated from high school. Grew up a Bulldogs fan, and loved it. It was a great place to grow up. There's a lot of great things about the South that I really enjoy. A lot of family values. Some formalities that are great. It was just a nice place to be a kid. I grew up in the suburbs of the city, so I can't say that I grew up out in the country. But there were some great diverse experiences that I had there. So that's where I'm from. I moved here in 2012. So I've been here, gosh, almost 11 years. But I did come by way of Atlanta. But prior to that, I lived in Chicago. So I grew up in Atlanta, went to school, moved to Chicago for work, worked there for a number of years, and then we moved to Atlanta and then out here to Heber.
So moving here in 2012, you've obviously seen it change a lot. I've only been here 5 years, and I've seen it change drastically. Tell me about the changes and how that's affected you over this period of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot. It really, really has. And of course, I only go back 10 years. I mean, there's people who've been here longer than that, and they'll tell you it's a totally different place. But even in my 10 years, it's been drastic. I remember when I first moved here, they were still talking about Walmart. It was the new thing, and they were worried about the old, mom and pop stores closing down, and there was some of that. And there was still a debate about whether Walmart was a good thing for this valley. We can have differences of opinion about that, but that's kind of where we were at the time.
Yep.
They were still working on 1200 South, going all the way down. The Gateway Plaza, where my office is now did not exist. There was quite a bit more farmland, there were fewer people. Yeah, there's just been a lot of changes with the number of people here, and there's been a lot of people from outside the state, outside the valley that have moved in. But overall, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I really enjoy more of the diversity that we have today, meeting people coming from California or New York or wherever it may be, yourself, California as well. And,
We don't talk about that, right?
it's all right, you don't need to be embarrassed about that. So Heber Valley's kind of becoming a little bit of a melting pot, but it's a great place.
Very true. So speaking of which, considering all things, how did we meet? Do you recall how we meet or how we met? I mean, I'm thinking about it right now as I'm asking that question.
I don't know if this is a trick question, but I remember meeting you at BNI.
Yes, I believe so as well. Yeah.
So I don't remember who invited you. Who was it that
Myself.
you invited yourself?
Yes, I was
That's
actually. I heard it doesn't happen too often. I actually was looking online, and I knew that there was some BNIs locally here, and just signed up through the website. And lo and behold, when I had last looked, the web design seat was occupied. So I just jumped on there to glance and see, and lo and behold, it was no longer occupied, and was like, well, I'll take a look into it. And I think I showed up once, and next thing I knew, I was signing up for membership.
And then next thing you knew, you were the vice president.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that happened. I think a whole bunch of people sitting around in tables voted me in, because I definitely didn't volunteer.
Well, that is how we met. And for those who don't know, BNI is Business Networking International, the largest networking group in the world. It's a tremendous organization. We just have a local chapter here that we're both part of, the Impact chapter. I have been in that chapter since the very beginning, and 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. And then I do remember meeting you and was immediately impressed with your background and some of the things you were doing. Love to have somebody in the group that's doing online marketing and is sophisticated with those things. So you've been a great add to the group. I really appreciate your friendship and the relationship we have, business and personal, from the group. So it's been great having you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So that kind of leads me in to my next question, and that's, what have we participated in together? We've obviously covered BNI, but there are some other things kind of here and there.
I've seen you quite a bit at Chamber activities, the Chamber of Commerce here locally. Also another great organization for small businesses. Something that we as a firm have tried to participate in from the very beginning. My law partner is on one of the committees for the group and has been very active. And then you and I have seen one another at some of the mixers and some of the lunches and other events. I think I saw you at the expo too.
Yep.
This past Saturday, which was great.
That was a great turnout. Yep. Phenomenal.
So, yeah, that's great. Then I've seen you at Rotary. You've been helping us with our social media platforms and marketing and website, which has been tremendous, because Rotary is kind of, some people believe it's an ancient organization with a lot of gray hair people, and we're trying to modernize a little bit. So.
Yeah.
And then just various community activities. You're a guy who's very involved in the community, so we're bound to run into one another.
Very true. Well, and that's one thing that I personally was impressed about is, as active as I was jumping from things to things, you pop up everywhere I go.
Well, I do enjoy being involved in the community. In my line of business, networking, relationships are very, very important. And that's part of it.
Yeah.
But part of it is just, this is a small community
Yeah.
that I feel connected to and invested in, and I want to share that with people. I want to help people. I enjoy the relationships, seeing people out and about in town, at these meetings, knowing what's going on, and just being involved and helping decide the future of our community. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I love how involved you are, like with the Rotary, also Wasatch Community Foundation.
That's right.
My next question was going to be, how are you involved? But because we covered almost all of it, I figured I'd just throw that one out there and I think cover the last one. Is there anything I'm missing?
Well, there's one other thing that might be interesting to talk about. The Wasatch Community Foundation is a great organization. It's the most active and probably the largest 501c3 charitable organization in the valley. It's kind of an umbrella organization for all things service and helping the citizens of our communities. You know, we've got different pillars, including recreation and arts and service and human needs. And I mean, it's just a really great organization. Education's another one. We do a lot with UVU and the high school. So I'm currently the vice chair of that and been involved for 4 or 5 years as well. My term is actually coming up, so I'll be passing that along in case you're interested. Just let me know.
Yeah, we'll do.
And the other thing that I've been involved with just as of late is the Red, White, and Blue Festival. If you've heard of it, it is we're going to have the first annual July 4th celebration in this valley. So traditionally, people have had to go down to the Freedom Festival in Provo or up to Oakley, or maybe even over to Midway for their breakfast. And one of the questions that the chamber gets most often is, what's there to do on July 4th in this valley?
Good question.
So as of this year, they're going to start the Red, White, and Blue Festival. And there's have a committee that's getting this going. We've got a schedule. We're going to start doing advertising, but it's going to be a really great thing. There's going to be opportunities for sponsorships for small businesses, and I think you're going to get a lot of visibility. We expect a big crowd, and then this is the first of many in the future. So
that's neat. I had no idea about that. Is this kind of like an exclusive podcast here? Like, is this talked about? Because this is first I've heard of this.
The word hasn't gotten out. We've done a lot of preparations. And they've thrown the schedule together of a lot of different events. There's a run, a 5K in the morning, and then they're doing what they call Freedom Walk, which is essentially a scaled down parade. And then Rotary Club is putting on the Chuck Wagon breakfast from 8 to 10 in the morning. All you can eat pancakes and some other things. And then we're going to have a variety of games throughout the day. And then it will all culminate in a big concert in the evening. Well, actually, the opening act is American Rooster, which is a local band headlined by my law partner, Corbin Gordon. And then after that, they're going to they're bringing in another bigger band to play. So it should be a lot of fun. The reason why you probably haven't heard about it is because we've been busy organizing it, and now we're just starting to roll it out through advertising. So maybe we need to advertise on your page and on your podcast.
Please feel free. I mean, going back to, what you were saying is, anything that we can all do to help support the community and help it grow and thrive. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the Heber Valley Business Group, and even just, our activities on there. I love seeing how active you are on there. I'll see sometimes there'll be kind of a lull, and then out of nowhere, I'll just see Josh is just hitting everything that he's missed for a while and
I'm not very
catching up. I love that, though. It's showing that, you're wanting to get involved, see what's going on in there. I think it's a phenomenal resource, and yeah. Tell me a little bit more about the Wasatch Foundation, because I honestly don't know, and I say Wasatch weird. People make fun of me all the time about it, but I don't know much about the Community Foundation. So, for maybe other people that don't know, like me, tell me a little bit more about, how to get involved, what they do, and things of that nature.
Well, it is, as I mentioned before, it is an umbrella organization, and we partner with local governments as well as other 501c3s as well as private businesses to accomplish projects in the valley. When I use the word projects, I mean that very, very broadly. We have 5 pillars, and I've mentioned some of them, but for example, the education pillar, they go out and find projects that need to be funded and run within that scope of the pillar. So the foundation actually goes back probably at least 20 years.
Okay, so it's been around a while.
Yeah, it's been around a long time, but in its early years it was kind of smaller, and then it did a lot of the scholarships for the high school seniors. We since farmed out that function to the Wasatch Education Foundation. But if you want to get involved, it's simple. We have these pillars. Figure out which one you like. Our website is ourwcf.org. And you can find one of those pillars, send a message, and say, hey, I'm interested in recreation. So right now we're doing pickleball courts, and we've got a sport court that we're doing. We just finished bike repair stations, and there's always all kinds of things going on that get hands-on. Go out and do something in your community. It's a great way to be involved.
No, that's awesome. I love too how, you guys kind of are just serving without really making it flashy or anything. Like, no idea all these different things are going on, underneath everything, and hearing how active, they are in the community. That's really cool to hear. So, we kind of started off with some, basic questions, general stuff. Let's start diving in a little more personal. So I've got a few just couple questions for others that might not know you as well. And in fact, myself, this is a great opportunity for me. We're diving in a little deeper. I've got some personal questions. First one I've got for you is, what's the most important thing you've learned in life thus far?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. The most important thing, I don't know if I can identify that, but I can identify for you probably one of the most important things, an important lesson. And I would say that is probably, you can't always have what you want. And it sounds simple.
Yeah.
But you know what? We are educated to plan out our lives. I'm going to graduate from high school, then I'm going to go to college, then I'm going to get married, then I'm going to get my PhD, and then I'm going to do this and earn money, and then I'm going to retire at 50 and everything's going to be golden. And the reality is, it rarely happens that way, right? So many times we fail in the middle of something, or we simply change course midstream. And I think a lesson to be learned is that's okay. We need to be satisfied with that. We need to accept that. I think sometimes we're planning so far in the future that we're not able to enjoy the present. And so I think we need to be comfortable in our own skin and understand it doesn't all need to be planned out, and we need to enjoy what we have now and be just fine with that. Some people get bent out of shape and they feel awful about it and depressed, and we just don't need to do that. Life's wonderful.
Yeah.
Accept what we have, make the best of what we can, and if it doesn't turn out exactly like we had planned, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, that's sobering, because I needed to hear that.
Most can relate, right?
Yeah. Well, I know I'm kind of getting off topic, but, just kind of off the cuff type stuff. Like, I love the conversations we have, because these kind of conversations happen anytime that we get together and we talk. And I ask you a question, the next thing I know, I'm just like, wow, that was a lot of wisdom there. I mean, we're first personal question, and
you talk too much. You can say that too.
Well, no, I love it. I love it. So, branching off of that, what has been your biggest success, and then also biggest failure? So, two separate questions, but
equally difficult.
Yeah.
I've been lucky to enjoy a lot of successes in my life. There have been hard times as well, no question.
Yeah.
But I got to say, when I say success, I prefer to put it this way. What am I most proud of?
Good point, yep.
And I think that's got to be my family. That's where I spend most of my time. That's where I find most of my fulfillment and enjoyment in life, and I'm sure you feel the same way with your daughter. So that's what I'm most proud of. I have 4 kids. My oldest are 19, almost 20, and they're in college, and they're great girls. They're twins, and they've done well and just responsible, good adults. And then I've got 2 still at home. One's 14, the other 12, both boys, and they're coming along, and they're enjoying middle school, and they're learning life lessons, and they're kind of responsible sometimes, but they work hard, they play hard, and they make good decisions. And I would say that's the thing that I'm most proud of, and of course my wife. And I guess I should say she's probably most responsible for these successes, more so than me. But,
Takes 2 to tango.
So that's probably what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dagmar, right?
Yes.
Yep. So, I forget too. I forget that you have twins, and I remember we had Hardman and Sydney, and I forget that we have within our fairly small group, you got 3 different people with twins. I think that's kind of a high percentage, isn't it?
It is. Must be in the water, as they say. Whatever we're drinking, B and I. If you want to have twins, come join us.
And if you don't. That's too funny. Okay, so You kind of answered this next one, so we'll move on to this one. Well, this actually may have been answered in the previous as well. Most influential person in your life?
I love the question. Hard to answer.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some great influences. My parents are wonderful people. They raised 11 children. I'm the second of 11. You can only imagine what that requires. My dad was very successful in business and just great people. My wife has been a wonderful influence for me. She's originally from the Netherlands, and she's has a PhD and is incredibly smart, but just works so hard both in and outside the house. Beyond, and then I've had great spiritual leaders in my life and a lot of wonderful friends and business associates. So all great influences on me. I guess if I had to sort of pick someone more neutral that I don't interact, sort of a role model, I would probably say Ronald Reagan.
Great one, yeah.
To me, he's kind of the penultimate president. He was transformative. I think today we forget how dark the 70s were.
Right.
I was born in 75. It's not like, I
Right.
was really old, but then the fear that we had of the Soviet Union in the 1980s, and I think America in the late 70s, early 80s was really feeling down about itself, and we needed someone like Ronald Reagan to pull us out of that. He was an amazing orator, but what he really was just a leader.
Yeah.
He stood up to the Soviet Union, led us forward with values that we needed and appreciated. So regardless of your politics, you have to respect him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I love how we have some of those leaders, no matter which direction you lean, that, you can't, arguably, you just can't, argue with. And, obviously they made a huge impact. I actually grew up not far from the Ronald Reagan Library in Los Angeles. So I've been able to check that out, and that was kind of cool. Me being an 80s boy, prodigy of the 80s, that was a little bit before my time. So that's kind of been my ode to Ronald Reagan and kind of learning more in depth of, what he did before my time and stuff. But I've also respected him as well. I thought you were going to take a cop out there for a little while and just say, "Oh, everybody's been an influence to me." But I'm glad you finally honed somebody to answer on with that one. Okay, so what personally inspires you?
One of the things that really inspires me when I see people in our community start out from very little, come from humble backgrounds, and make something of themselves. For example, in business, someone who starts their own business and becomes successful. Your listeners know how hard that is. I think a lot of people who've never done that don't know how hard it is.
True.
And those guys are heroes. That is hard to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. And whether you have an education or not, take hold of that dream that we have in the country, which
Amen.
I believe in, and then be successful. It's just, I love stories like that, and those people, I bow my head to them. They're wonderful people.
I love that because, we really are the backbone of America, and without small businesses, nothing against, well, maybe something against corporates, but, then there wouldn't be anything left if we just let them make all the decisions, right? So, good point. What are you most passionate about?
I've got a lot of passions, one of which is just being involved in the community. We already talked about that, so that's one of them. I'm pretty passionate about my clients. We've got, at our firm, we don't try and be everything and everywhere. Our focus is the Wasatch Back and, in particular, this valley. And so we want to be the go-to firm and advisors for the businesses located here. We don't advertise in Salt Lake and Utah County. We do that here. And so I'm very passionate about my clients, many of whom are some of my best friends. And I see them outside of work, and I enjoy spending time with them, and they all know that they're welcome to call me anytime they want. If they've got a hiccup, they got a problem, let's just sit down and talk about it. And so I'm passionate about their success and helping them get where they want to go.
Yeah. That's awesome. And for those of you that don't know, Gordon Law Group is the largest firm here in Wasatch County, correct?
That is.
So that's a huge feat right there. I do know that there are a fair few smaller firms here in town, so I'm sure that you got to be proud of being part of that. So that's awesome. So speaking of which, did you always want to be an attorney at law?
Well, most of my memorable life, I think that's true. I'm sure when I was young, I wanted to be an astronaut or something. Nowadays, I think most kids want to be gamers or YouTubers.
I was just thinking that. Yep.
The 1980s version of that, right?
Right.
No, but I think when I began seriously thinking about a career, I really was drawn to the law. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. I consider it a noble profession. Not everyone does, but I do. I also really enjoyed legal dramas on TV. I love Law and Order.
Law and Order, yeah.
And Matlock. Perry Mason was a bit old, but that stuff I enjoyed. And so I felt like I'd like to try that, and I think I've been good at it. So I think most of my life I wanted to be a lawyer. But you never know until you actually are one.
Absolutely. Very true. Two very different things. You're right. So a common myth about your field or expertise.
This is a good one. Yes. Well, let me just tell you a little bit of a joke.
Okay.
You've all probably heard. So there's two lawyers, and they're negotiating a deal with one another. One of them says to the other, look, let's be honest, okay? And then the other one says, okay, you first. And that was the end of the conversation. So the big knock on our profession is that it's full of snakes and nobody's honest. And I disagree. One thing that people don't know is that our profession is very highly regulated and self-regulated. And we adhere to very particular rules and have high expectations for ethical standards and professionalism. And I myself try to adhere to those. And my experience is that most lawyers, 99% that I deal with, are very professional, honest, and upstanding citizens. So I get the jokes, they're funny, and I've heard just about every one, and it doesn't offend me personally. But I would say a myth is that all lawyers are liars. As people say.
Oof. All right, well, let's bounce back from that one. Most important lesson you've learned over your career?
One of the most important lessons I've learned is how important it is to be honest and act with integrity in the profession. And that can be hard. It can be surprisingly hard. It's so easy to cut corners, to fib a little bit, to try and take advantage of a situation. And there are some who do that, disappointingly. And some of my worst experiences professionally have been with people who act that way. But at the end of the day, I've found, and most clients appreciate this, when you do things right, honestly and with integrity in the right way, that you come out ahead.
Right.
And most clients appreciate that.
Yeah.
So,
The old adage, the truth will always prevail kind of a thing, you know?
I believe in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been my experience.
Yeah. Okay, that's neat. Let's see. What is one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting out in your profession?
In my profession, I would say first thing is, you mean they've already graduated from school and they're starting out?
Right.
I was going to say if somebody was thinking about going into the profession, I'd say make sure that's really what you want to do. I think a lot of people sort of default, I'm going to become a lawyer because they can't think of anything else, or it just kind of sounds fun, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Getting there, and once you're there, it's a lot of work. And there's a lot of burnout in our industry, and a lot of depression and drug abuse and things like that. Bad habits that are created by stress and pressure. So make sure that's really what you want to do. Don't do it for the wrong reasons. And then once you start out, I would say work hard, learn as much as you can, and be honest. And people appreciate that. They'll hire you for what you can do. And just keep at it, because it is not easy.
Yeah,
like
I
any
can only
business.
imagine. Right. Some are a little more difficult than others, though, and I think you definitely have kind of one of those ones.
Maybe, I don't know, but I find it rewarding, and, not every day's fun. It's still work, and I come home very tired, and there's a lot of unique things about it. You're taking other people's problems upon yourself, and that can be hard, but you know what, it's rewarding, and like I said, I believe it's a noble profession.
What is one thing about your job that almost no one agrees with you about?
Well, the funny thing is, when you're an attorney, usually no one agrees with you anyway. So, like, I never agree with the people on the other side. They
Right.
got their own counsel.
Yep.
We're adversaries. We're going to talk about it. We may not agree on anything, but at the end of the day, we're going to try and find a resolution. So, one thing about my particular practice is not every attorney does everything. Like,
Right.
There's a million different engineers. There's a million different kind of attorneys. But I tend to, help people with transactions, but also in disputes. And in those cases, people don't agree with me. I think people have a romanticized idea sometimes of attorneys. You go into court every day and you're running about, making these arguments, what have you. If you watch Law and Order, which I enjoy surprisingly, but the actual trials they do are very, very fake. I mean, and those on TV, it looks like they got to fit it in an hour, so it looks like it's 10 minutes and you're done. Opening statement is 30 seconds. Well, most of these cases last years. And a trial can be a week every day or more. I've had multi-week trials. So those are some of the things that most people wouldn't know, and that I think a lot of other attorneys would disagree with me on as well. So.
Interesting. Okay. So I was going to ask this question earlier, but I saved it based on a small little dialogue we had before we jumped on, and that was your favorite story to share.
Yeah, so my favorite story to share. One of my favorite stories to share is about the Mexican fisherman. Have you heard this story?
The Mexican fisherman. I have not.
So I wrote it down because it has some key points that have to be rather verbatim. And so I love sharing it, but I usually share it wrong and butcher it, and it sounds ridiculous. So I brought it with me if you don't mind.
Okay.
Try and read it. And color in a little commentary as well. So
Okay.
A lot of people have heard this, but it's a great story for businessmen.
Okay.
And it causes us to wonder, what are we really working for or towards? What are we spending our time on? What's our goal? And are we truly mindful of what we do? So it goes like this. One day, a businessman on vacation was at the pier of a small coastal Mexican village. He looked out and noticed a fisherman rowing his boat to shore in the afternoon sun. The fisherman docked his boat and hopped out, resting his fishing pole on the side. Inside the small boat were several large yellowfin tuna. The businessman complimented the Mexican on the quality of his fish and asked how long it took to catch him. The Mexican replied, "Only a little while." Now, I'm not good at Spanish, so I was going to try and do a Mexican accent, but I'll spare you that.
It's not one of your 4 languages?
No. The businessman then asked why he didn't stay out longer and catch more fish. The Mexican said he had enough to support his family's immediate needs. The businessman then asked, "But what do you do with the rest of your time?" The Mexican fisherman said, "I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, then I go and take a nice afternoon nap with my wife, Maria, and stroll in the village every evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life, senor." The businessman scoffed. "Well, I'm an American investment banker, and I have a PhD in business management, and I could help you, brother. You should spend more time fishing in deeper waters, and with the proceeds, buy a much bigger boat. And with the money you make from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats. Eventually, you'd have a whole fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catches of fish to a middleman like you do now, you would sell directly to the processor, and eventually you own your own production plant for canned food. And in this way, you control the product, the processing, and the distribution of fresh fish to thousands of people. You would need to leave this small coastal fishing village and eventually move to probably Mexico City, and from there to LA, and then eventually you'd probably go to New York City, where you would run your expanding enterprise." The Mexican fisherman, puzzled, asked, "But senor, How long will this take? To which the businessman replied, 15 to 20 years. But what then, senor? The businessman laughed and said, that's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce an IPO and sell your company's stock to the public and become very, very rich. You would make millions. Millions, senor? Then what? Well, the businessman said, then you would retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta with your wife, stroll to the village in the evenings where you would sip wine and play your guitar with your amigos. The fisherman, still smiling, looked up and said, isn't that what I'm doing right now?
Mm.
So I really like that story, and I'm sorry for reading it, but I think some of the details are really important. And I think there's quite a few lessons that we can all learn from that story.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thanks for sharing that one. I'm surprised I've never heard of that before, and obviously I chuckled at a point there because I knew exactly where you were going with it, but had me puzzled for a little while.
Yeah, I'm
Good
not a
lesson,
fisherman,
though. Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, I think the point translates across everyone's life
Yeah.
in all industries.
Yeah.
You know, think about what we're doing, why we're earning this money. Stop waiting someday to find happiness in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, your commitments right now, what you're doing right now, can lead to a rich life. If
Right.
done right. Related to the point of you can't always have everything you want, but appreciate what you do have.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy it.
Well, and I love how riches or treasures, we instantly just think monetary, but your riches and treasures, they're not always that. They're your family, spending time, being able to do what you love and want to do rather than out there hustling for, the next big buck, which I think is a valuable lesson right in and of itself. So,
Well, I agree, and I'll say that you've been a good example of this to me. I mean, I've got my own kids, but I've really appreciated knowing and watching your relationship with your daughter, and I know that's very meaningful. And there have been times where I've tried to schedule an appointment with you and say, no, I can't do it today because it's daughter time, and I think that's really great. That takes some courage. It's not easy when you're a small business owner, so kudos to you.
thank you. All right, so I whipped up a couple kind of fun questions. The whole purpose of this was to kind of do a speed round in like a minute. So quick fire concepts. We'll kind of just jump into this. Favorite movie?
Saving Private Ryan.
What was your first job?
I worked at an Italian deli in Georgia and cleaned it and served some food. And it was great.
Very fun. Last thing you recall Googling?
You know, I'm a big history guy, and I often read the Quora. I get their emails, and I swear every time I start reading one of those articles, there'll be something in there they'll mention, and I'll go and Google that. And I don't remember what it was. It was something about the current conflict in Ukraine, and I Googled it, and it went down a very long trail.
Favorite subject in school?
Favorite subject in school was always history.
I'm not surprised. Best compliment ever received?
Oh boy. You know what? I don't know if it's the best one I've ever received, but I received a great one the other day. I've been on a diet, trying to lose some weight, and we were out laying some sandbags, and somebody I hadn't seen in a little bit came to me and said, "You've been losing weight?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Boy, you look a lot younger." And I said, "Oh man, I'd love to hear that." So that was a
Thanks
great
for
compliment.
noticing. Worst insult that you were actually proud of?
Worst insult they're actually proud of. I don't know. Not long ago, I had somebody call me at the office. I sent a nasty-gram, a letter out.
Nasty-gram.
The guy calls me and starts screaming at me and just being really, really rude. And my assistant could hear me through the door. And I'm usually a pretty calm person, but I lost it on this guy. I'm like, why in the world are you calling me? What you're saying is not correct. This is not helping. And she told me that I was surprisingly rude to this person. And you know what? I actually felt okay about that. I felt like he deserved that. So, and I was doing it for a client, but it was just really out of line.
So I know I'm stealing your thunder here in your 1 minute. I only have one question after that, and we're over our minute. But it's funny you share that because I have almost a mirror story last week, working for a client, trying to do some hosting switch-arounds, and I'm in here dealing on my 20th hour within 2.5 weeks dealing with their tech support, and I just got nasty. I was just over it, and I'm in here literally talking very loud. I'm not quite screaming, but I'm talking extremely loud. And I get off the call, and then I hear knock, knock on my front door, and it just occurred to me that we had a brand new hire on their second day on the floor going, "Is everything okay?" I'm thinking, oh man, what a great start.
Sometimes you gotta let loose, right?
Sometimes, it doesn't happen often with me either, but so that was just kind of a funny story. All right, if you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I'd probably eat pizza.
Ooh, I would agree with you on that one.
Pizza, and there's so many different kinds.
All right, so when we go out for our next one-on-one and we're going for lunch, we'll grab pizza. Done.
Mountain Mike's.
Mountain Mike's, there we go. Shout out to Mountain Mike's right here. All right, so got a couple closing questions, and this is kind of, just opportunity for you to share kind of, any kind of upcoming events that you have. Obviously, we shared the 4th of July thing. Is there anything within Rotary or anything within the community that you're involved in that you would love people to know about and kind of invite in to help out with some things? I know, and now I'm kind of going on a tangent, but with people that are, you and I being as involved as we are in the community, sometimes we would love to pull more people in, to get involved in the things that we're involved in. Is there anything that you have that you kind of want to just shout out to people like, hey, I would love if we had some more support in blank?
Well, one thing we have coming up Monday next week is Honors Night over at the high school, where we honor the top 10% of all of our high school students, and then the seniors, valedictorians, get their stoles. We've had a lot of support from sponsors who sponsor each student. I think maybe, did you sponsor? We're still talking about that. But anyway, great event. It's at 7 on Monday over at the high school. Just come and support the students. Network with them, meet them, congratulate them. There's free cookies, so that'd be a great thing to attend. We also have a golf tournament. It's Links for Literacy. It's a reading program we have here in the Valley for Rotary Club. We go and read to all the first graders in the entire Valley every month and bring them copies of books for them to take home.
Oh, cool.
And we raise money in a golf tournament in September. So anyone who enjoys playing golf and wants to support a good cause, you can sign up for that at Heber Valley Rotary.org, and we'd love to have you there. And I would say keep your eyes open on the flooding situation. We've had some opportunities to lay some sandbags down, and I think the worst may still be yet to come. So there's going to be some opportunities there.
You think we're going to have another round at that?
I think so. I think, especially at the higher elevations, it just hasn't started coming down yet.
Yeah.
And I know the city's planning for Center Street to be kind of the main channel. I mean, they expect Center Street to be underwater, essentially.
Right.
And to go out west and down into Spring Creek. So, we were able to lay some sandbags a couple weeks ago, and I think there's going to be some more opportunities.
Yep. Well, and I love how you guys actually, I believe you guys had street duty that day, and knowing that there was that need, you guys just pivoted right into where the need was within the community. So.
Well, and you raise a good point. We didn't get to do our street cleanup, our highway cleanup, but we are doing that on May 13th at 8 a.m. in the morning, meeting out at the LDS Church building off Highway 113 towards Midway. So if anyone wants to come out and clean up the highway in that location, feel free to come. It only takes about an hour. That's a great thing to do. We do that twice a year.
Great. Well, I'll be there. I'm committing to it live, so you guys can hold me accountable on that. So, with as much as you do within the community, Josh, obviously this podcast is an opportunity to share all the things you're involved in, but also we want to learn how we can support you, your family, your business. Are there any offers that you have to the community to, offer up your services? Is there anything that you'd like to share with the community on how to get involved and contact you to be able to help with any kind of law type issues that they have? I know you and you've logged some good time on the phone with me that I'm very grateful for, and we're actually talking about doing some business together in the future. So, that aside, how would someone contact you for your services?
Yeah, great. Thanks for asking. So we are the largest and only full-service firm in the Valley. I personally do a lot of business work, and so I was excited to come on your podcast because I know your audience is small business owners in the Valley. That's our perfect target audience. And so what I like to do is someone's operating a business, and they just come to me and ask questions, and we figure things out together. I help them operate smoother within the confines of the law, predict future risks, avoid risk, and if they happen to get sued or need to sue someone, take care of that too. So it's really kind of a concierge business service that I provide. And so I have a free 20-minute consultation for anyone. You come in and you tell me what the issue is. If I can give you a little advice and you don't need any more help, that's okay. But anyone who hears this podcast and comes into my office and tells me that they heard it and wants to do some work together, you have 15% off of legal services. Most of it's just on an hourly basis. But my goal is we get together, we figure some things out, and you feel free as a business owner to call me anytime you want, come back in if something else arises, and we maintain that long-term relationship. And in turn, I will advertise you. I'll refer you to my other clients. I've got client hats and logos in my office that I talk to everybody about. So just like you, Josh. So let's all help one another, and I'm here to help you if anybody needs it. My telephone number at the office is 435-657-0984, and our website is GordonLawGroupUtah.com, and so you can find more information there. Give me a call. Let's talk.
Love that. Now, I wasn't really planning on this, and but just thinking about that, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking of how often I've had you kind of in my back pocket, and I've honestly loved being able to have you as a resource for clients that I have that might need contracts, that are starting businesses, because obviously I deal with small businesses, a lot of people that are just starting up, and knowing I got Jewkes in the back pocket to go, hey, you need a contract, like, it covers me too, because here I am setting up, clients with automation and all these different things, and deposits and payments up front. And it's like, make sure you've got a solid contract ahead of you so that, if unfortunately things ever do have to go to court or something, you've got something to stand on. So very, very important. I've loved being able to benefit from your resources for my own clients. So, going back to what you're saying, I love how we're all in community together. We're all trying to support one another. And that's honestly the magical thing I've personally found about the Heber Valley, and a lot of the inspiration behind what we're doing with the Heber Valley group, and how I'm even using this podcast to more focus on the Valley. It always comes around, full circle. You give, and you. I always use this adage, you can never outgive the giver. You're giving, he'll give you a tenfold. So. Thank you for having for coming on the show, Josh. Was really excited when you reached out, and we're like, yeah, I think I could pull this off, and kind of pulled it off last minute within a couple days. But really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more and having you sit on the show, and looking forward to continuing to network with one another and catch some pizza. Magic Mites.
We got to do that next. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. You've got a great audience. Love the Facebook page and the group, and it's very active, so it's been great for me too.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. Well, thank you guys, and we will see you next week. If I could get my mouse to work.